What's up, everybody? It's meteorologist Andrea Myers coming back to you guys with some live coverage today for a tornado warning heading into the Shreveport, Louisiana area. We've got our hatched on this, which means it is confirmed and it is a potentially dangerous situation moving into the Greenwood area and up into the northern part of Shreveport right now. So we've had some tornado warnings, had a couple through the DFW metro area this morning, a couple across eastern Texas, and now this one's getting ready to jump across the border from Texas into Louisiana. I mean, on reflectivity, you can see that classic hook there, and I mean, our tornado is going to be right in there. If you go ahead and switch over to velocity, you can see the tight couplet on this right in there, and that's where our tornado is going to be. Zooming on in, we're just past Elysian Fields and just north of Panola, again getting ready to jump into the Louisiana state, or jump across the Louisiana state line. And there's our tornado couplet. Let's see if it's doing anything on correlation coefficient. It's been skipping, so it was initially confirmed, and our mapping team has the map ready for that. And now it's been lifting and dropping back down and lifting and dropping back down. There it went on that last frame. Nothing correlation coefficient wise. And then if we move forward, here it goes with that CC drop as it's hitting more objects. So there's our debris ball from this tornado getting ready to track into Shreveport region. So this is current 4 p.m. Not looking like much right now in terms of a debris ball, but one scan ago it was there. It is starting to lose some of its shape, but it's still got that hook. We're going to see if it can get itself back together once it moves into the area. For all of Louisiana, Texas, we've had a ton of storms forming out ahead of that line that's expected to form later tonight. Got a couple of tornado warnings across the area, and these are just general tornado warnings. The only confirmed is going to be up towards Shreveport, but it looks like we've got a few cells down towards Lufkin, one just north of that, and then some severe thunderstorms in East Texas as well, as all of these get ready to go. There's a ton of wind shear in the environment today, and what that is just rotation. So as these storms form and move up into that rotating air, any of them are expected to rotate as well, and that's why you see so many of those markers here today tracking across East Texas and into Louisiana and potentially producing a tornado threat. Now this is going to be a long day today into tonight. As we see these storms continue to track eastward, we could potentially continue to see a lot more tornadoes where we're seeing them now, crossing into Louisiana and then eventually the southeast into tomorrow. So let's go ahead and take a look at these two down here while we wait for another frame update off of the Shreveport storm, which currently looks like it's not doing much. We just got one issued into, forgive me for mispronouncing this, Natchitoches, Louisiana, and then a couple here towards Lufkin. We've got some rotation on it, a couple of hooks going here, but it doesn't look like they're very strong in terms of rotation. Can we see if there's any sort of couplets on those or debris balls, Justin? Got Justin producing today. And yeah, you can see the couplets where that blue meets that green. That's where that tight area of rotation is forming. But is it reaching the ground? That we'll have to take a look at our correlation coefficients to find out as they continue to track off to the northeast. Not really any lowering where we're seeing those couplets, so that is good news in terms of the fact that we're not likely to be seeing any tornadoes on the ground in the Lufkin area. And then, you know, we've got another warning that just got issued over Natchitoches, Louisiana, for these cells forming here. So just a ton of supercells across the environment today with all these storms. Check back in on Shreveport. If you guys are just coming in, there is a tornado warning that was previously confirmed heading into the Shreveport, Louisiana area. It is since starting to wind down a little bit, but we'll see if it can re-strengthen. That has been its trend over the past few frames, has been to kind of wind down and then regroup its couplet, regroup that rotation. And right now, here's that couplet there where that red meets that green. That's where you get super tight rotation, but again, can it reach the ground? Let's check out our correlation coefficient across I-80 right now, and still nothing in terms of a debris ball, fortunately. So if you guys are along I-20, I-80, it's moving past you right now, moving up towards 169. So again, if you guys are in any of these warnings, whether or not there's a tornado on the ground, that means there is a high potential that these storms could produce tornadoes. So regardless, get in your safe place, get in the interior room of your building or in the lowest floor, or both if you can, because this is going to be a long night for the Southeast and the Mississippi Valley today with these tornado warnings. Lots of potential to continue seeing rotating storms through the area as these track off to the north and east. So looking like still nothing off of our Shreveport storm, but the cities affected are going to be Bossier City, Greenwood, Shreveport, and Benton, and it's lasting until 4:30. So you got another 25 minutes or so. How fast is that tracking, Justin? Can we get a storm track on our storm here? Over 270,000 people affected in this warning, so definitely a lot of people getting their alerts on their phone right now for this tornado getting ready to track through.
So racing to the northeast at 45.
45, yeah, it's booking it. Getting ready to fly through the area. All right, let's see. All right, so off to the northeast. Puts it in Blanchard by 4:20, so about 15 minutes for you guys. 4:28 for Shreveport, so a little over 20 minutes. Again, if you're in that warning and you got that alert, get ready because it's coming for your area. It should track just off to the northeast of Shreveport, through Blanchard, through Dukedale, through Red Chute and Leslie. And again, if it has that potential to get that rotation back on it as it tracks through, it's definitely something that's a very serious situation tracking through right north of our radar and into the Shreveport area. And then, you know, we've got a couple behind it, got some storms getting ready to try and start rotating just to the west of Carthage. That one's not warned yet, but down to the south near, it looks like Gary City, we got a tornado warning going down there. Tons more to the south of it, and one in Natchitoches. Just again, it's going to be a long night for you guys, and that's going to be the phrase of the day. So here's more of our cells through the Lufkin area. Nothing on those over the past couple of frames. I want to check out this one and just see what's happening. It's a brand new warning. It is just a generic severe thunderstorm warning. Nothing observed quite yet, and it's looking pretty messy on our radar. But you know, you can see that little bit of curvature there, and that's where that couplet is coming from. There you go, where that bright meets that dull green. That's where we're starting to see some upper atmosphere rotation on our storm. It's trying to pull itself together, and once it can wind up tight enough, then we see that tornado funnel start to drop down a little bit. So we'll see what this one can do as it continues to track off to the north and east. And that's kind of classic from what we have been seeing from so many of these cells for this afternoon and evening. So we're going to talk to you guys about all of that that's happening. If you guys got questions, feel free to drop them in the comments, and we're going to get you in and out of Shreveport with this cell and provide you with any other updates that come along the way. But again, in terms of confirmed tornadoes, this is the only one in town, and it is starting to look a little bit more like it's getting that hook back. So again, this is just something that we want to be careful of when we start to see it take that structure. We want to see if, you know, it's going to continue to intensify and strengthen. Again, a ton of rotation in the atmosphere, so, you know, it's got the energy to feed off of, and if it's able to, you know, get spinning, we could potentially see another tube on this guy as it tracks up to the north and east. Is there still a couplet on it? How's it looking in terms of rotation? Still kind of classic for what it, or still kind of typical of what it was looking like a couple frames ago, which again is fortunate if you guys are in Shreveport. Still not a ton of, you know, super circulation there, but we're going to be watching it. If you scroll it back a few frames, we can see where it was a second ago, and it was more rural out to the west of Wascom. But there you go. I mean, there's that couplet, and it was really booking it up towards Greenwood, and then it's kind of lost steam since. So there it was a second ago, jumping up towards Wascom, towards I-20, and then once it moved up towards the highway itself, it kind of lost some steam, and we're going to see if it can, again, bring it back. But quite the debris ball on that a few frames ago, and, you know, it has the potential to do the same once again. So, going to keep watching it. Nothing right now. Nothing right now. But again, just be aware of that if you guys are in that tornado warning. So jumping back out, still, again, it's still got that structure, so we're going to keep an eye on it frame by frame. This one's starting to pull itself together. When they kind of look like a comma, that's how you can tell it's, it's rotating up towards Gary City. Well, let's see if there's, any sort of correlation coefficient. Justin just drew, the inflow into that storm, and there's that little notch, and as it forms around it, it starts to kind of rotate around that, and we could potentially see some circulation there. So yeah, there's our rotation. It's still pretty broad. I would not expect to see a debris ball on it quite yet, but I could be wrong. Let's take a look. Yeah, nothing quite yet as it's tracking up to the north, but it is still trying to get itself together into, Gary City, Texas, tracking up towards Louisiana once again. Once these storms hit Louisiana, that's where we have the most instability. We've had a warm front that's tracked through the state. It's pulled all sorts of heat and humidity up into the area, and then we've got that shear ahead of that cold front that's causing all that rotation. So once these storms move into that area, that's where we could see the potential for more storm coverage as well as more severe storms, potential tornado warnings tracking in to the Louisiana and southern Mississippi Valley area. So there's our Gary City storm. We've had a couple to the south of that, and you can see on almost every single one of these some rotation on that kind of comma shape as these storms try to pull themselves together. And again, we're just going to let you guys know what's happening at all of them, so we can wait for each frame to update through Shreveport. But these Lufkin storms have since moved out of the Lufkin area. They are now moving towards the center. Still not some great structure on them. It looks like they're kind of tapering off, and then this Natchitoches storm is not doing much either. But yeah, you don't see that, again, that typical comma shape of a rotating thunderstorm. I'm expecting that if we look at velocity, we're going to still see some pretty broad rotation on these, and that's the case there. We've got maybe a little better, I wish this marker wasn't in the way, but I don't think there's anything we can do about that. A little bit better of rotation just to the west of San Augustine, but the one to the south, not a ton, and then super broad, again, right where it says early here. So this would be the only name of the game here if this can pull itself together, but it's not looking great structure-wise. And then now I want to jump over to Natchitoches again, and we're just kind of going to jump around between Lufkin, Natchitoches, and Shreveport in between frames. So still not, again, not great in terms of structure on this either. Starting to move up to the north and west, and that little, curl is where they're warning for that tornado potential, but nothing coming out of it quite yet. So, jumping back up to Shreveport now. I don't know if we've gotten a new frame. It looks like they rewarned the Carthage storm based on, that new rotation that we're seeing. But again, look at all these storms trying to form that little comma shape as they track through the area, because there is just so much rotation in the atmosphere. But a bunch of them are moving in on the Shreveport storm, and so that could potentially be cutting off its energy as it tracks into the city into this afternoon. Wow, it's already 4:12 p.m. Central, so into late this afternoon, tracking into Shreveport. So no frame update yet, and no reports coming in yet either. When it was tornado warned, it was pretty rural, fortunately, so we're going to see if we get anything else out of this storm as it continues off to the northeast, again at 45 miles an hour. So it's booking it up to the northeast towards the I-49 and Benton corridor. Now down to the south of it, that is that Gary City storm. Still no confirmed warning on that yet, headed up towards Stonewall as we see, again, that really classic comma shape heading into the Highway 59 area. A couple areas of rotation that it's picking up there on our system, but the main one is going to be here where we see that hook down to the south, and it is pulling its rotation in a little bit more as we head up across 59, so we'll see how much it can do as it continues to track that way. But right now, still looking like no tornado. If we check out our correlation coefficients, they should be pretty much consistently red, and there you go across the board. Once you get concentrated areas of bright colors on that correlation coefficient, that's when you start to see debris. Correlation coefficient is basically just how similar is everything in the atmosphere. If it's super similar, it's going to be all red, but if you start to get a bunch of different stuff like spiky spiky hail or debris, then you start to see those values lowering, and then you start to see brighter colors on our radar. None of that right now, so it's looking like it's just a bunch of rain tracking through with this storm right now until potentially it could, get itself together as it crosses across Gary City. So looking at this storm, going to keep watching that into the next few minutes. And then down towards Lufkin, still got those cells tracking through. The central one is the one that was looking best a couple minutes ago, but I mean, really on reflectivity, we can see the structure of it doesn't look fantastic as it heads just to the north of Shreveport. And again, forgive me if I mispronounce these. We are from Oklahoma, so I'm doing my best. But as this tracks up to the north and the east, we could potentially see more rotation on it, but right now it's looking very weak. Same for the one in Natchitoches. So we were watching the one in Shreveport. These have started just with that with that last frame update. We're starting to see more of a curl on each of those. But, and there you go with that really tight couplet of velocity, starting to see those trying to pull themselves together as they track off to the north and east. But right now, the two most intense storms are going to be the Gary City storm and the Shreveport storm as we continue to watch these off to the northeast. So let's take a look there at our latest frame update through Shreveport, which it looks like they have dropped no, they have not, never mind. But we do have, there you go. There's that hook as it heads into the Blanchard area and up across 173. Going to continue tracking off to the north and west or north and east. No large hail on this right now. We're not seeing any correlation coefficient drops, but we're seeing that couplet that was forming a few frames ago. And let's see if we got any of it back as we're tracking that way. This is what it's looked like over the course of the past few frames, pretty much since it got into the Longwood area. Now tracking into Blanchard, we're seeing more of that straight line velocity couplet, which again is just indicative of super broad rotation. So good news for the Shreveport area as we're watching this get closer and closer. Super broad rotation. Probably got some really gusty winds on this. So, be on the lookout right now for straight line winds if you guys are along 173 south of Blanchard. Going to get some pretty heavy gusts associated with this supercell trying to pull itself together. But that is going to be the main threat with this storm. No real hail on it. And again, still waiting to see if it'll skip and drop another tornado as it heads towards I-49 here. So that's what we have for our Shreveport storm per this last update. And I mean, the storms around it are trying to pull themselves together, but we're starting to see more of a cluster, more of a linear mode for our storms. The ones that are staying out ahead are where we're having those supercells. So, you got a couple hooks here. Here's our main one just to the north of Gary City. It doesn't look as great as it did a couple frames ago yet again, but let's check out our velocity correlation coefficient duo and see what's going on. That's pretty broad rotation on that as well. Not as broad as Shreveport, but still pretty broad overall. And so again, it's looking like it's probably not going to be reaching the ground if there is any funnel on this storm. But let's take a look here as it tracks off to the northeast of Gary City. Still nothing. You need to see, a pretty solid circle of correlation coefficient lowering to, suggested debris ball. We don't have that right now as it tracks off to the north and east. So it's looking like the Gary City storm, like Shreveport, is trying to pull itself together. For the rest of these storms, I mean, I don't know if they've been issuing any additional severe. Looks like it's just Natchitoches, and we got one all the way south just to the north and east of Houston for a severe warning. I don't think we have Houston's radar loaded though, so that's not going to help us. But that does show the extent of that line though, tracking all the way as far south as Houston, Texas, and it's expected to sweep across the Gulf states, bringing more storms all the way as far south as like Lake Charles into New Orleans, Mobile for tomorrow. So we're going to continue watching that. Southern part of Arkansas has a severe warning right now, and then the rest are going to be tornado warnings. And again, we're just going to get you guys in and out of Shreveport for today. And then, if anything else significant happens along the way, we'll let you guys know what's happening, but we're mostly just waiting for this cell to get out of Shreveport and watching what this Gary City storm does as it tracks that way as well. So Both of them trying to pull themselves together, not really seeing anything successful yet, and seeing all these cells tracking through just behind them. So if you guys are just north of Shreveport and to the west of 49, again, gusty winds are going to be your story. Really heavy rain, probably seeing some good lightning and thunder, but no tornado quite yet. Same for you guys if you're just to the south and east of Carthage. You know, again, super heavy rain for y'all and some very gusty winds, but no tornado at this time. But regardless, once again, if you're in a tornado warned area, do the tornado warning things. Get inside, get in, get down, cover up is what we like to say in the weather community. Try to, you know, seek an interior room and just wait for that warning to pass before you go and check anything out. So that's the meteorological advice if you guys are in either of these tornado warnings or if you're in the tornado watch area, which is another point. This whole yellow area, if we zoom all the way out, this whole yellow area right now is in a tornado watch for today, up to 70-mile-an-hour winds possible. Ping pong ball sized hail as well as tornadoes are what this watch is in effect for as it tracks across Louisiana. If you guys are not in that watch yet, you might be into tonight and tomorrow morning. So be aware that this system is tracking off to the east, getting ready to make its way through central Louisiana into western Mississippi. And as it does, it's going to pack all the severe threats along with it. And it's going to take its time sweeping across there into the overnight hours and then tomorrow morning. So be tuned to that if you guys are in the tornado watch for today. So zooming back on in to our southern storms, just going to check out frame by frame what's going on as we, you know, wait for news about Shreveport to see if that supercell tracks off through. Still got these, you know, curlicue shapes just to the south of center Texas, but they're really kind of closing in on themselves, and that's not going to help it much if it's trying to drop a tornado with these storms. So not anything wildly of concern with these two yet. Then off to, well, actually, I don't know if Natchitoches, Louisiana still has a tornado warning. Did earlier, but it doesn't look great. Looks like it still does, yeah. They have not dropped it yet. However, again, still seeing that curlicue shape over near Provincial, tracking up towards I-49 once again. If you guys are along the I-49 corridor, you're going to have all those storms sweeping across you over the next few hours from now into, you know, later tonight. So, you know, if you guys got to travel up to the northwest or southeast along that highway, you're going to have lots of heavy weather tracking through into this evening. Then for Gary City and Shreveport, we still got those last two storms getting ready to try and sweep their way through. But again, they have since calmed down. There was a debris ball on our Shreveport storm earlier, but not right now. It's still trying to collect itself once again. And then our Gary City storm got a little bit more of a hook on it now, but you know, it's still not quite as powerful as it looked before. If you look at that velocity couplet, it's going to be pretty broad. So there it is. You don't see that super tight area of rotation, and so it's not going to be able to, you know, spin fast enough to drop down to the ground. If you think of like a figure skater, you know, when they pull their arms in close, that's when they spin really fast. Same with the atmosphere. Once they get that really close area of rotation, that's kind of when it speeds up and it can drop a tornado to the ground. Doesn't have that quite yet. Jumping up to Shreveport, I think we got a frame update there. So we're just kind of bouncing around. Northern and southern Louisiana, they did drop the PDS tornado warning on this. It's just now a generic tornado warning. And you know, you can see it trying to form that hook, but again, it's pretty straight up and down now. So zooming on in, looking like there's not going to be much of a correlation coefficient or couplet on that, as we saw a couple of frames ago. So heading across 71, and I mean that in terms of rotation, that looks terrible. It's not doing much right now as it tracks across the 49 corridor. So we'll probably give it a couple more frames, see what it does, and you know, once it moves out of the area, we'll call it good for the afternoon as we let y'all, you know, continue to watch this situation unfold. So just here to give you guys all the up-to-date information. Watching this guy continue off to the northeast. Got another coming in behind it, but they're all starting to kind of cut each other off, get into this big messy jumble of a lot of rain, thunder and lightning, gusty winds, and possible tornadoes. So what we really need to continue to see that tornado threat, you know, when we started our live coverage, these cells were pretty isolated out ahead of this line, but now it's moving in and it's starting to cut all of those supercells off and form more of a linear mode where we could get straight line gusts and maybe spin up tornadoes along the line, but those classic supercell structures are starting to be less and less frequent in the area. So jumping down to Carthage Stonewall in the south, I want to see, you know, if we have any updates on this storm, and then, you know, the couple out here, but we're starting to see storm mode get messier and messier as we go. So, you know, these two are staying isolated near Shreveport to the north and west of San Augustine. They're trying to rotate, and let's see if they are well enough. They just reissued a severe tornado warning for the one to the north and west of San Augustine. Can I go ahead and get velocity, Justin? Yeah, okay. So there you go. That's a pretty tight area of velocity there. Is it dropping anything? Because that's looking pretty good in terms of, you know, a couplet. No debris ball yet, so that's good news, but it's possible, you know, there could be funnel clouds through the area, and we'll have to wait and see if we get any reports in. But this guy is trying his best as it moves up to the north and the east. We'll see if anything changes on this over the next few minutes. And then for the rest of the area, still again looking very messy. Very messy. As we've tracked over the last few minutes, storms have kind of gotten swallowed up by this main line. And, you know, anything isolated is going to be far down to the south or way off to the east. And, you know, nothing's come yet of this Natchitoches storm. The one off of Shreveport is starting to die out, and we'll see what we can do with Gary City. So, you know, watching these continue to unfold as they track through the Shreveport metro area. Nothing strikes me yet about these storms off to the north and south. What are you thinking, Justin?
No, not really.
Yeah.
The ones to the south are kind of in a radar hole, so they're kind of hard to tell, but.
Sure. Yeah, you know, through the Mississippi Valley, you got radars in Shreveport, you got one in Houston, you got one in Lake Charles, and not much in between. So it makes that whole area between Shreveport and Houston kind of hard to see. So that's kind of going to be the struggle for the central part of East Texas tonight as we watch these storms. But, you know, you can see the couplets and the rotation on these storms that have come out of Lufkin. And then Shreveport, we can see pretty well enough to pretty confidently say that it was not dropping a tornado over the past few frames. And same with this Natchitoches storm, not a ton coming out of that quite yet. So I'm going to give it, like I said, another frame or two, just make sure nothing changes, and then we'll leave you guys with that. But it's going to be a long few days. If you guys missed the noon forecast, it's going to be like this for tomorrow into Thursday. We're going to continue to see this line track off to the east. As it does, it's moving into a very unstable environment out ahead of it, capable of producing hail as well as tornadoes. That's going to last into tonight, into tomorrow morning, and all the way through Thursday. So stay tuned if you guys are in the southeast. If you're in DFW, it's tracked over you and through. You know, got a couple of tornadoes reported through your area, as well as hail up to 2 inches in Dallas this morning, but that line has since moved eastward, and now Shreveport is the main focus for a lot of folks into today, as we got that tornado warning tracking through a pretty largely populated area. And so we just want to make sure that nothing else happens as that storm moves in and out. So looking like, you know, we got a couple more warnings just to the east of Texarkana. We got a handful here and there. But fortunately, at this point, I'm pretty confident saying nothing is producing quite yet. We're going to continue to see what happens over the next few minutes here. So for Shreveport, I guess we got a couple new frames to check out for that Stonewall storm as well as Shreveport. Shreveport looks almost exactly the same as it did in the past frame. And, you know, we're seeing not much in terms of rotation for that storm continuing through the Blanchard area. Rotations not looking super good, but again, those winds are packing a punch through the area, so probably seeing some stuff blowing around, you know, some leaves here and there, lawn furniture, as this continues to try and rotate, but so far unsuccessfully. Then down towards Gary City. I'm starting to lose track of my names here, but down towards Stonewall and Carthage. We've got this storm that's now getting a pretty good hook on it. You know, you're seeing this little like thumb coming off of the storm heading across the state line. I'm willing to bet that there's a pretty good couplet on that, and we've got multiple rotation markers being picked up by our system. Let's go ahead and take a look at velocity and see how fast this is spinning. There you go. So where these super dull values are meeting those super bright blue values, this area is where that storm is rotating the quickest. So out ahead of it, like Shreveport, probably seeing some pretty heavy gusts, probably seeing some pretty loud thunder, but let's take a look at correlation coefficient, and that will tell us if we've got a tornado on the ground quite yet. Nothing yet, and you know, maybe some small hail up in the northern part of that, but nothing severe at this point in time. But this one's trying as it tracks into the Louisiana state line. We're going to see if we can get a tornado out of that over the next few frames and see what that Shreveport does, or Shreveport storm does, as it, you know, makes its way out of the area. There's our tornado report that came out of the Shreveport storm at the beginning of our coverage here. You know, we had a PDS tornado warning, which just means particularly dangerous situation. So there you go, damage at Old Town Road and 451 north of DeBerry. Outbuilding damage, trees shredded, so that's pretty intense wording. And then, yeah, lots of trees down through the area. So definitely a tornado. You can see that debris ball on radar. And I mean, let's, I guess, go ahead and scroll back and take a look at it. And it looks like they dropped the warning off of Shreveport.
Yeah,
so we're probably good after let's review that. We'll just cover what happened over the past few minutes in case you missed it. And then we'll probably call it good on coverage here. But if you guys were not at the beginning of our coverage, Justin's going to go ahead and roll the radar back and take a look at what the heck happened as it tracked just to the north of the I-79 corridor. There's your couplet right there. To check out correlation coefficient on this frame, right where Justin circled, bet you're going to see the debris ball there in the correlation coefficient, and there it is. That is what your debris ball is going to look like, folks, is that concentrated area of lower correlation coefficients. And that's just, again, those trees getting destroyed, buildings, any sort of debris in the air. That's going to show up on radar as, you know, particles and things that are different than the rain. They're different shapes, and so that's why we get that correlation coefficient debris ball. So there it is in one frame. There it hops up towards Greenwood, and then the next frame, once it gets towards I-20, kind of fizzles out. We no longer see that, and so the storm had since lifted, and it stayed lifted until it moved past Shreveport, and they have fortunately dropped the warning. So if you guys are in Shreveport area, breathe easy. You got through that one. You got another line that's headed through your area with some nasty winds and the potential to see more spin-ups along the way. So, you know, stay tuned to your weather coverage over the next few hours. 9 p.m. is probably about the time when you're going to start seeing those taper down, and then should have a pretty quiet night. But if you guys are in the rest of Louisiana, it's a different story. So we'll provide coverage as the night goes on. We'll let you guys know what's happening with all your severe weather risks here. You can give us a call at 855-334-4245 if you have any questions, or email info@hailtrace.com for more info. And again, we'll keep you advised, but for now, I'm meteorologist Andrea Myers. Thanks for watching.